Hello and welcome back again to our last installment of the Doctrine of Anthropology. Right offhand, I want to apologize. I've uploaded the videos to YouTube and I looked at the facial expression on the screen for the previous video and my goodness, that looks horrible. I about scared myself. So I apologize for that. I'm sorry that it turned out that way. I'll try not to make silly facial expressions from here on out because I don't want them to be memorialized forever on the video. It's kind of funny, but sorry about that. Anyway, on our last topic today, for anthropology, we want to talk about the transmission of humanity. How is our humanity passed from one generation to another? Now, in our previous video clip, we talked about the constitution of humanity, whether we are a complex unity, a dichotomy, or trichotomy. And there's scriptural support for each one of those, and I don't want to try to rehash that. But given those constraints, how is humanity passed from one generation to another? How is it transmitted? And throughout the history of Christianity, there have been two main answers. Although early on in Christianity, there was a deviant answer that the church rejected by and large. I'll speak on that one briefly first. And that is the idea of the pre-creation of all souls, the pre-existence of the soul from some point in the past. The church father Origen held to this view, but no one else in church history really has, until the rise of the Mormons. And the Mormons hold to this view that all souls pre-exist and that they need to be embodied to be fully functioning humans. Now, aside from Origen, I don't know of anybody in church history who has held this view. There could be somebody that I'm not aware of, but it couldn't be a big name because only Origen is the only one I know of. Which leaves us with two traditional explanations of how humanity is transmitted. Everybody has always agreed that the body has been the production of the coming together of the man and woman in sexual intercourse. That the sperm and the egg combine and make the baby. Even before we had terms for sperm and egg, everybody kind of understood that's how the physical part of humanity was transmitted. But what about the soul? Where does the soul come from? In church history, there are two answers for this. One is called special creationism, which is the view that God creates the soul at or sometime near conception, so that the parents create the body via natural process, but God creates the soul and places it in the body. That is called special creationism, that God specially creates each soul. The other view that has a lot of substance in church history is called traducianism. And that's the belief that mom and dad create both body and soul. Now, of course, this process is always superintended by God. He oversees it all every way, so we can still say with full confidence that God is the creator. But the actual means by which the soul is passed on is through natural propagation. And the soul is a product of the sperm and the egg as well, even though we don't understand how it all works. And like I said, both of these views have been accepted within the bounds of orthodoxy. Pick any period of time in church history, you find both. Early on in church history, most of your Greek and Eastern fathers were special creationists. The Western were traducianists. As you move down through the Middle Ages, it gets evenly divided. As you get into the Reformation period, again, it's fairly evenly divided, although I believe special creationists probably outnumbered traducianists. So the upshot of all of it is we don't absolutely know which one's right. We can throw out the idea of eternal pre-existence, but could special creationism be correct in that God creates the soul and places it in the body? Sure. could traducianism be correct? And we believe that both father and mother, when they reproduce a full human being, body, soul, and spirit, and that is also superintended by God? Sure, that's correct too. So which one is it? Ultimately, I don't know. But this is the reason I bring this up is because it's a good time to stop and take a look at what we believe as Christians. And we can now look at a good exercise of what it means to think in a consistent manner theologically. And this is the exercise I want to do in our remaining time for this video. Consider what we talked about in our last video clip, that humans can either be a trichotomy, a dichotomy, or a complex unity. Now, is it possible to hold that humans are a complex unity? That is, we are, for lack of a better way to put it, body, soul, spirit, a unity of the three, and at the same time hold to special creationism, that God creates the soul where the human parents create the body. And I don't think you can hold to both of those at the same time. I don't believe that it's logically possible to be a special creationist in terms of the transmission of humanity, while at the same time holding to a complex unity constitution of humanity. Because read between the lines a little bit here, and I think you'll see why. Special creationism really says that we come from two different places. Our bodies come from our parents, but our soul comes from God. And if you have two different origins of who we are, then I don't think you have a really, truly meaningful unity of our Constitution, because the body doesn't have the same origin as the soul with special creationism. Now, special creationism is fully consistent with dichotomy or trichotomy, and traducianism is fully consistent with all of them. But I hope you can see that special creationism and complex unity can't live together so well. And this is one of those places where it's good to go back always as we reflect theologically and as we work on the process of doing theology, to make sure that what we do is not internally inconsistent. I believe to hold special creationism together with complex unity creates an internal inconsistency, because how can you have unity with different origins of the constitution of humanity? I think that you just can't hold those two together. You can fully hold complex unity and traducianism, or you can fully hold special creationism with dichotomy or trichotomy. But you can't do complex unity together with special creationism. And since I personally hold to complex unity, I am therefore a traducianist. I think I don't have any problems believing that God superintends the creation process, while at the same time allowing human beings the freedom to reproduce on their own. I think He has created us so fearfully and so wonderfully that He has given us that power, even though He is still ultimately the creator and ultimately the one who oversees the process from beginning to end. So I have no problems with being a traducianist and then agreeing wholeheartedly with God's words to Jeremiah, that before He knit him together in his mother's womb, He knew him. So I don't think that being a traducianist implies that God is therefore hands off of the creation process. I think He is still fully hands on, but it then becomes a part where he plays his part, or a process where He plays His part, but yet He allows human parents to play theirs. And I think that that's more in line with the general way that God does things, rather than he doing everything himself. But again, that's my opinion, and that's also based on and informed by other things that I believe that we'll try to bring out as we continue along in this series. But I do want to emphasize to you that there are two separate ways to explain how humanity is transmitted from one generation to the next. Both fall under orthodoxy. Both are acceptable. Both have been historically well received. But you can only receive one if you hold to a complex unity of the human constitution. If you hold to a dichotomy dividing material and immaterial, or you hold to a trichotomy where body, soul, spirit are all divided, then either one will work. But if you want to hold to a complex unity, I don't think you can hold to special creationism at the same time. And again, just to reiterate and just to wrap up as we wind this video down, I just want to make sure that as you do theological reflection and as you add to your body of knowledge, that you continually search that body of knowledge for any signs of internal inconsistency. We always want to eliminate inconsistencies. There are mysteries that we can eliminate, but logical inconsistencies we can. So I want to encourage you to do so. So finally, that wraps up our 7-video segment on Christian anthropology. We've looked at multiple ideas of humanity as being made in the image of God, as humanity as workers, humanity as male and female, humanity in terms of the human constitution, humanity in terms of transmission. We've talked a lot about what it means to be human. Now, as we continue through our study, when we talk about Jesus, we'll say even more about what it means to be human. Because remember, we are made in the image of God, but Jesus is the image of God. So therefore, who Jesus is will add to our body of knowledge of what it means to be human. And we will address Jesus and what he contributes to our understanding of humanity in due time. But that will wrap up our 7-video series on anthropology. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope it's been meaningful. I hope it's helped you, and I hope it's challenged you. And I pray that as we now slide into the doctrine of sin, that we will be able to have a better grasp on what it means to be human, so that we will understand exactly what sin is and what sin means. So have a great day, enjoy your studies, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye now.